afternoon, and welcome back to the post-lunch session of Day 2 of the Huddle. We hope you've been enjoying the session so far. What would you like for us to discuss at the Huddle 2020? We've left postcards on the table, and we'd love for you to share your thoughts. Feel free to leave them on the table, or you can leave them outside on the conversation wall in the corridor. The next session is titled Actors All, the New Face of Women in Indian Cinema. I'm delighted to invite on stage Ms. Rasika Dugal, Ms. Richa Chadda, and Ms. Tilottama Shom. This session will be moderated by Namrata Joshi, cinema editor, The Hindu. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Rasika Dugal, Richa Chadda, and Tilottama Shom. Actors All, the new face of women in Indian cinema. Over to you, Namrata.
Thank you. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the three ladies, the brightest, most talented women that I've come across in my stint as a correspondent for covering cinema. To begin with, the topic itself, what do I think of when I think of the new face of Indian women in films? A lot has to do with the kind of portrayals one is seeing in the movies of late. Also, I would take it back to your persona as well, what you bring to the table, what you and people like you are doing by coming to populate a world of films. And also in the changing times, when the film industry itself is in the throes of change, in terms of the narratives it's bringing out, in terms of the filmmaking one is seeing, and in terms of the changing audience. So somewhere it all comes together to help in the creation, as far as I can see, of what the face of the woman is looking like in films. I would flip the topic and turn it into a question first, and ask you, as practitioners, do you think the face is changing? Is there any difference coming in? Is there something new happening? If it is happening, what is the alchemy that is bringing it all together? And if it is not, then what is it that's preventing? Maybe Tilottama, you can take it as a start? No?
Well, we've got an afternoon session. Everyone's had lunch. That's great to know. But if you feel like taking a short snooze, we won't hold it against you. So is the face of Indian cinema changing? Namta, I really don't know, because all I know is that I really have always really felt like an outsider to the industry. And growing up, my father was in the Air Force, so we moved from one place to another. And I really always felt quite odd about being always an outsider. And I didn't like that about myself growing up. But I have grown up, and now I think it's something I really treasure. So even my relationship with the industry is very much of an outsider on the margins. And the changes are something that I feel are proportionate to my willingness to be open. So the more open I feel and the more I focus on my craft, the industry feels like it's changing. And when I feel like I'm shut down or feeling cynical, then the industry feels really narrow. So, because yes, there are new narratives. There's a whole entire digital space that's come. There is a sense of freedom and perestroika of the digital space where you can say anything, and that has its own freedom. Has it changed my life? I can't. I really can't. Mm-hmm. I can't say.
I'll come back to the question of being on the margins, because somewhere perhaps margins lead to a bigger change than the mainstream does. We'll come back to that later, but let's talk to Richa, because you have been the one who's been on the margins and yet kind of, courted with the mainstream as well. So how do you see the transformation, especially when it comes to the, the roles for women? Do you see a transformation?
I see a transformation. I definitely see something. I see more empowered female characters. I see more diverse female characters, not just the archetypes, not the mother figure or the virgin or the the promiscuous, whatever. I don't want to use that word. So that I see definitely that the archetypes are sort of getting diluted, and I see diversity in roles. But I don't know if there is a greater inclusion. It's just because of the kind of people we are. We've pushed our way in. I know her from theatre. I know her. I don't know how I know her, but I'm saying we've all worked towards it, and we will always be outsiders because that is the nature of the industry. That maybe my child will feel like they belong. And I've caught it with the mainstream because then if I do Fukre, so many people go and see Masaan. That's why. It's very simple logic. We have to do all kinds of films, and there's only a good film and a bad film in my head. Not necessarily a commercial film or a offbeat film. And diverse voices have always existed. There was always Deepthi Naval, Shabana Azmi, Seema Bishwas. These were our forerunners in a sense. They always existed. But why are we popular today? Because I'm also on Instagram. She's, on Amazon Prime. We all have the benefits of the internet also to our advantage. So that makes us more accessible. And also gives us a certain amount of freedom that we can bypass the traditional print press, which sometimes only caters to people who pay for it.
No, please don't look at us accusingly.
No,
Let's
this
leave
is
that
the
for the
Hindu.
rivals. Yeah.
This is the Hindu. No, I'm just ending the sentence. I'm not meaning it towards you at all.
I understand. Rasika, she's talked about Amazon Prime. You have worked across mediums. It's not just films which are getting you the roles. There are short films I've seen you in, web series I've seen you in. The diversity of mediums, is it creating any diversity when it comes to the roles that you're getting to play?
Definitely. So far, there has been the web space seems to be free of censorship, and there, in fact, seems to be a need to write something which is breaking the boundaries in terms of women characters for sure, but even in terms of plot, even in terms of the kind of subjects that they deal with. And while that kind of pressure might be leading to another kind of stereotype, but at least it's a refreshing change from formula that we've been seeing for a while in mainstream cinema. So yeah, I think there are interesting things being written in the web space, but there is good and bad there as well. I think there are interesting roles being written for women. What I've noticed is that there are definitely roles written for women in which they are finally acknowledged as sexual beings. While that is a relief, it's also, I think, I'm not sure where it's going, because I think for so long, we've not acknowledged women as sexual beings in entertainment at all. And then finally, when we are sort of heading towards that, I feel that we don't have a reference of how to get this character to work without making the woman look sexualized in any way. I don't think we know. So even if there's good writing, I don't think we know how to create that visual which does not make a woman look sexualized, but just acknowledges her as a sexual.
So in a way, even before a good thing kind of begins to take shape, there are alarm bells ringing, isn't it?
I mean, as it should. I mean, the healthy amount of skepticism is good to approach anything that you do. So I think that, for instance, when I got the role in Mirzapur, where I play this character called Beena Tripathi, who I was very excited about because I felt like I had never read anything like that before. But of course, we should all be aware that we might not be able to pull it off like we wanted to.
Okay. So, from a very positive step of women getting to have sexual agency to becoming sexualized, uh, the male gaze is not going away, or is
No,
it?
it's not going to go to, because we are living in a patriarchy, so we can't expect an ideal situation in film. Films are just a microcosm of society. If it exists in society, it exists in our political spectrum, and it exists everywhere. It's not, we are not going to be able to escape it so easily. Also, it's very ingrained. See how somebody takes a picture now, the first thing they say, oh no, I look so fat, or oh no, my hair. Everybody's immediately analyzing themselves from the point of view of how they are viewed. So beauty filters have entered our lives, you know. So it's not very easy to just remove it. We can try, and we are getting there with increased participation of women in direction, in writing, in production. The content that is being put out there is somehow tending to achieve a balance. It's like, you know, jumping on something and then like a Bosu ball and then figuring your balance out. That's what I think happens. So there are hits and misses, but we'll get there.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is kind of try to see this in a bit more elaborate way by asking you about your processes and about your choices, okay? Which I presume would be drawn from your own worldview. And I'll begin by, Richa, with you yourself. Say, picking up a character like Shakila, which one is going to see you very soon in. Did you walk that tightrope, where one can easily presume, that that film could go wrong, could go right? When you were approached for the character, how did you take it up? And when you are dealing with it, acting it out right there in front of the camera, how do you go about it? What is the process? And as far as I remember, I think you feel that it is a very significant story that needs to be told in the contemporary times.
I think it's the story of a woman who was a pathbreaker in many senses, because in the 90s, in the early 2000s, see, all of us are a woke audience. We're very educated. We're constantly purifying our hearts and minds. You're well traveled. We watch the right content, and
And we know the meaning of woke.
we know the meaning of woke. So it's very easy to be feminist today क्योंकि हम लोग college में सीख के आ गए उसको. But for somebody to live that truth without having that kind of exposure, living somewhat in a bubble in a tiny Malayalam film industry for a very brief period of time, and standing up to the biggies who were maybe it's a great case, for me it was a great case of career sabotage after as a Me Too survivor. For me, it's just a fantastic cinematic story, and I'm telling you now, it's a commercial film. Do not expect a Masan when you go into that theater, but it's a commercial film, and I'm happy that it is, because it will reach a wider audience. And the things I want to say, things that are pertaining to how the role of cinema in society in propagating rape culture, for instance, complex topics like that need to be put on the table. I need to be able to discuss it with my rickshawala and not on just on Twitter. So that's why. Also, having said that, Namita, you must remember, worldview doesn't play a very big role. Sometimes it's a paycheck. Sometimes it's a big studio film you're being offered, and you're like, oh, I'll get more visibility. And we are all outsiders. Our mummy daddies didn't give it to us, you know. So we are doing this. So worldview, I think, if something drastically disagrees with me, I will either see how to alter it or fit it into something that is more malleable and less offensive. But worldview, in the scheme of things, because it's also a job, is like maybe number 3.
Okay. But would you go
That's not
very,
bad.
very far away from values that you've held deep, ideologies that you have believed
No,
in?
that is not. I don't think any of us can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tilottama, taking up Sir now. Again, a very, very interesting topic, but again, tightrope walk, class divides. Can you be very idealistic and in a very romantic frame see them completely bridged? Or do you very disappointingly let the status quo remain? This film kind of posits that challenge. And you have done it in a very subtle and fine way, which is what got the film such a lot of appreciation in Cannes in the Critics' Week. What was the approach? Again, it's a significant topic that we are dealing with.
As far as Sir is concerned, when I read the script, I really felt that I had blood on my hands. The very class divide that the film was critiquing was something I felt I was guilty of. And yeah, we'd like to think we're really woke, but would I fall in love? When I sit in a taxi, do I check the man who's driving it? Do I think about the possibility of a romance, a love story? Like Richa said, I mean, if the male gaze has been ossified over centuries in our country, women have also co-opted to that gaze. And moving from hypersexualizing women or denigrating women to the notion of class, I mean, class is it's like invisible slavery. It's, you can't fight a problem unless you don't recognize it to be one, right? So when I was looking for, to research for Sir, I went on, the cheap trick of going on Google and looking for perhaps narratives of people who've triumphed over such, class taboos and have had relationships across class for a man and his domestic help, or maid as we call it, servant, worse, as we call it, to have a love story. And the only hits that came up, unfortunately, were in the realm of pornography. So the only way we as a society can envisage a relationship between domestic help and the man who she works for is unfortunately in the realm of pornography. I don't think, I rest my case here if I'm debating anything at all, so for us to take a leap of faith and dignify such transgressions, I think it's a long way off, because we don't even recognize it as a problem for us to even begin fighting it. And I think the most enlightened and the most wise amongst us will have to really look into themselves to see whether they truly feel, while the world is absolutely not equal, do they feel that they can treat everyone equally, enough to fall in love with them.
So in a way, working on a film also holds a mirror up for you, not just for you as an individual, but for the society.
Yeah, I felt guilty. I really felt like, also as I was turning the pages, I was wondering, where is this going to go? Because this relationship is so ingrained in my being as something that is, it's just not going to be understood. And the end of the film is open-ended, and in all the festivals that I've attended, there have been two reactions, and one very strong reaction of people who are like, why couldn't the film make a clear choice and have them walk off into the sunset? And I would do that, like, why didn't she take a stand? And I asked him, sir, do you have a car? Like, yeah, I have a car. Do you have someone who drives it for you? And he said, yes, I have a chauffeur. I said, do you have a child? I have a daughter. I said, if she fell in love with you, I'm sure you wouldn't have a problem, right, if they walked off to the sunset together. And he was honest enough to say that, no, wait. It's my daughter we're talking about. So we may, espouse great views in public forums about being egalitarian, but when it comes down to the challenge of even should you get married, what would the life be of a person who's constantly being perceived in a certain way? And anyway, in the film, it's not like the character I play is a character that is drawn with great amount of dignity and strength, way more than the man. And yet she's the one who'll have to fit in. So I really felt like I was very, very aware, and I have really tried to be very conscious of trying to create at least a more equal community around me, and to be aware of how I do treat people differently depending on my relationship with them. And I'm very aware of it, I'm very guilty of it, and I'd like to not be that person. And there are very few people in my life who I know, there are really few, one being Vivek Gomber, the actor who plays Ashwin in Sir. And I think he's one of the rare actors who could actually pull that part off, because he truly treats everybody equally. And I had tried that part. Interestingly, you know, Namrata, when she was auditioning many male actors to see the chemistry. The best of actors, there was something in them in the playing of the scene where they were slightly patronizing. The patronizing that comes from, look, I'm such a good man, I can even fall in love with you. I'm such a great guy. I can't fall in love with you. I'm so open. I'm liberal. I am the product of the 21st century. I'm woke. But the fact that I can feel your awareness so much, it's in these subtleties, you know. It's not in the big show of, yes, I love you and I can tell the world that, but actually in how you treat people. Because when you actually don't think that the person in front of you, no matter what they do, is your equal, and I think that's a tremendous state of being, and it's very aspirational for me, and the film really made me realize I'm far from it.
So in a way, it is a profession, you know, you are doing it because you have to pay the bills at the end of the day. But from what I see, you girls are not the switch on, switch off a kind of people. Coming to you, Delhi Crime Stories in Sundance recently, again looks at a very, very significant moment in time, which is, you know, the Nirbhaya episode. How difficult was it to negotiate, you know? And again, I mean, I'm just talking about it through the hat, not having seen it. But there were so many problem areas related to the issues that it threw up. How does the series looks at it, and how do you in particular look at your character there of a cop?
When the script of Delhi Crime Story came to me, what I found very beautiful about the script is that so it's about the investigation around the Nirbhaya case, and which is spearheaded by this wonderful lady called Chaya Sharma, who was DCP of South District Delhi at that time. And she sort of realizes that if she doesn't take this case on, then it's probably the perpetrators are not going to get caught, because if it gets into a whole bureaucracy of how the police normally functions, this is not going to happen. And given the severity of the crime and the heinous nature of the crime, she took it upon herself to form a team to head this investigation. And I just felt that what was interesting about the series was that while it is a story about how these 6 men were caught, it is also very beautifully explores, if I may say so myself, but very beautifully explores the lives of the women who are investigating this case and how they are negotiating patriarchy, sexism, misogyny at every level, you know. And that's what makes, because these are the small conversations that we forget to have every day, which is what finally leads to a crime like this. And I think that was very important to explore in a series which talks about violence, because very often after there's been a violent attack on a woman, all of us talk about the violence in great detail, but we are not able to get beyond that and talk about what led us as a society to get there. And I think that's a conversation that this series has, hopefully will have and open up.
So this leads into, you know, the issue of patriarchy, the issue of misogyny, and the times that we are living in. Me Too, Time's Up. You were one of the 82 women on the red carpet in Cannes, along with Nandita and Rowena Guerra. You all have expressed your views about it. How have things changed? And how has this particular moment in time called upon you to take decisions in a certain way, if they have, you know? How's the industry changing, if it is changing? And how do you see the future? Tilottama, are you going to start off?
It's very hard, and let me break it down for you. What's even harder is that society looks at the film industry already as an industry of vice, as Sin City. The women who work in film are fallen women, which is why for the longest time we were told, अच्छे घर की लड़कियां फिल्मों में काम नहीं करेंगी. So in that ecosystem, to come forward and say, no, this person who I treated like a father figure, who I thought was a mentor, who I thought was God, whose films I adored, made an advance on me, or raped me, or assaulted me, accosted me, said something nasty about me, texted me a dick pic, anything and everything, to deal with that is very different, very, very difficult. It needs an immense sort of objectivity to remove yourself from the situation and treat that person as a sex offender. And this is a very, people say, oh, but he's such a nice man and a good father. Okay, I'm sure that the biggest criminals in the world, Pablo Escobar was amazing with his daughter. Does that make him any less of a criminal? Was he not a drug trafficker? Was he not a womanizer? Was he not somebody who was blowing up planes? He was. Both things are possible. Somebody can be an amazing human being to their own family, to their near and dear ones, and be a repeat offender. I think it's very bleak because I hear people just apologizing for others. I hear apologists of rape, and no woman wants publicity like this, you know. The first time anybody speaks up, they're like, oh, she wants money or publicity. How do you belittle something to that? If you have actually gone through that, it affects every aspect of your life. It affects your life, your level of confidence. You feel worthless. It affects all your relationships within the bedroom, in the boardroom. It affects your whole spectrum. And then you are told, and you have to put this in context of the country. Speaking of Nirbhaya, one of the rapists has said on camera quite proudly that we did what she deserved, even though he didn't know her. We have ministers after every rape giving out such insensitive and completely inhuman statements that makes me wonder why, despite this room of amazing people, why we sometimes have the leadership that we do in this country. So I think it's quite bleak, but the cat is out of the bag. This is having two kinds of effects. The consequences are not both happy. One consequence is that people are afraid to make that move. The repeat offenders, I know, maybe now they will send a straightforward text and say, hey, do you have such and such person's number, and we'll give it to them. And then it's that. Instead of going on about how they think your legs are nice and you have to feel happy that a strange man experiencing midlife crisis, you know, gets to tell you about your legs. But the other thing that's happening that actually frightens me, I have seen conversations in rooms where people are like, Arey, we won't hire women only, yaar. No women, no Me Too. That is the scary consequence. So we'll have an even more lopsided sort of film, behind the scenes film environment. That worries me. We need to have a strong union. We need to have a situation where if a woman comes forward and says, okay, I come forward today, I will name and shame my oppressor, because it's very easy for a third person to say you have to name and shame, that should be solely the survivor/victim's call. It's their call. Nobody else can tell them that. Are you willing to take care of their family? Are you going to give them royalties for the films that they've already done? No. The possibility is that she will never get hired again. Who's going to take care of her bread and butter? These are the real things we need to discuss.
You know, which is what, you know, was one of the questions on my mind, that individually you all have very strong opinions and views about it. But say, unlike in Kerala, where you have Women in Cinema Collective, and I'm not saying that they're not facing backlash here as film people, as film professionals. You know, Chinmay faced such a backlash. Yeah. But you know, there is not even a semblance of a sorority, so to speak, in Bombay. There's no coming together. I sometimes wonder what prevents. You know, what is it that stops people from coming together?
I think there is a coming together. It's not big enough, it's not loud enough. But I know a bunch of us actresses had met together and met the producers union and in Bombay and shared some of our testimonies and challenges of working in an industry like this, where the POSH guidelines are not implemented. So, I mean, it's an extremely well thought of guideline, but and it can be tweaked to our industry where place of work is a moving place. It can be outdoors. It can be in, you know, out of the city. An ICC can be constituted. It's there. But the willingness to institute it has to come from the producers. How many films am I going to refuse that are not POSH compliant? I live in Bombay, I need to pay my bills. So we knew that there is only so much agency that one has in this matter in trying to constitute some sort of change. And we did meet, they were very open to hearing, but I don't think it's one conversation. It'll be many, many conversations that will happen. Sinta, which is the Actors Union in Bombay, gave us a really fair hearing and has been actually, Sushant has been very, very supportive.
They acted very fast on the Alok Nath case also.
They did, and they were actually one of the first unions to actually do a POSH workshop after, you know, we had met Sushant. And and in the meeting of some like-minded women, I think people did share some incidents. And I've had a career of working with really incredible directors, and I always thought being safe on set was not something that I needed to ask for, it was a given, because the creative process really can't exist without a feeling of safety and dignity. But I did go through one incident in my entire working career which really shook that sense of belief, and I did make a decision to not talk about it, to not name that person. But I did use the conversations that happened post you know, what we call, you know, the Me Too movement in India, which I feel frankly is very different from the Me Too movement in America.
Why do you
And,
say so? Why do you say so?
Because I think our legal processes are different. So if I do share about something that happens, I will also be then defending myself in court for many, many years to come. I mean, the American justice system operates on a very different principle, where there is safety in A, numbers, and there is safety and freedom of speech in the first, you know, to go and share without repercussions of having to defend yourself for the rest of your life in a legal system. I want to get on with my life. I have done many films after that said film, and I'm happy with that decision. And it was something that caused me tremendous amount of anguish for having to keep quiet, and I did speak. I haven't spoken on a public forum, I haven't spoken to the press, because I also feel that it's not something I want to speak to the press about, it's something I would like to take the person to court. And our justice system currently doesn't support such allegations. What is the burden of proof?
Even FIRs
The burden
are
of
not
proof is
filed.
on the woman. Even when there is a case as not abuse in the workplace, but even a case as serious as rape. When you lodge an FIR, the reality of the person has to go to a government hospital. The checks are extremely sometimes handled with, not in the most humane way. So there are so many roadblocks to saying just speak out. But like Richa said, what after that? The industry ostracizes you. You are spending your savings on going to your legal, in seeking legal recourse. But I do think, because of what has happened, there is a community of women who are willing to talk to each other. And the strength in that numbers, in that room, meant something. Meant something enough for Sushant to come on board and say, let's do something. For, the top most successful directors of Bombay were in that room and were very sympathetic. And understanding that while the POSH guideline exists, it's something every studio and every production house has to implement. Now, there are challenges because there are some production houses that don't have employees more than 10 for POSH to be instituted. So these are way above my pay grade for me to fix, for me to understand how every production company in Bombay can be POSH compliant is not something I understand. But me and many others have, taken the time to understand firstly, like I as an actor didn't know what the POSH guideline was. So we criticize the lack of a support system, but in the corporate world, the POSH guideline was instituted, not now. So it's also my ignorance that has contributed. And I can afford to be ignorant because I come from privilege of having worked in films where I've only felt safe.
But you know, what is the way forward? I mean, I'm not talking, I mean, there are two sides of it when you talk about the negative implications, which many people have spoken of, that, you know, maybe women won't be allowed to participate as much in the process of filmmaking. But then there are you know, you both as, you know, the three of you as individuals. Does the movement change your way of working, your process of choosing films, your approach to the whole craft of acting itself? I mean, how has it taken your way forward now, you know?
I just feel that it's at least given me the space to look at the bright side of things. Is that when I call out somebody, people will listen to me, at least. And that was something that I wasn't sure of earlier. Or at least that if I call out somebody for making a sexist remark, people will not laugh at me and say, oh, you're just being uptight. You know, people will listen to me and probably attend to that. So that is the smallest change. But I think that really is something that comes from a place of fear for people who normally do that. I mean, they're holding back because they're scared, not because there is any sort of respect for women. And in one sense, मुझे लग रहा है और दबे जा रही हैं चीज़ें. But at least there's no that if something like this happens, I can call it out, and possibly it will not have a backlash on me like it used to happen earlier. Is what I feel.
No, it will have a backlash on you. It will. It always does. It does have a. This is a country where rape is called izzat lootna. Why? The man lost control. Everybody knows that a woman can't be. I've never heard of a single case where a woman has been accused of rape. Have you? So, the baggage that the stigma that comes with anything to do with a sex crime is so much that we have to blur the face of a victim. It doesn't happen in murder cases and robberies. It happens in assault and rape. Why? These are questions we need to ask.
Sure, but I'm just saying that possibly if I'm going to, hopefully, possibly, after we've had conversations around cases of the Me Too movement, that if I call out somebody for making a sexist remark on me, it'll possibly be paid attention to. And
We will
not.
support you, but I am very realistic about this, that the unemployment rate is so high that there'll be a ready army of trolls to attack you. So,
I'm not as famous as Richa to be trolled yet.
Coming to trolls, now all of you have a great social media presence. You are accessible, you know, you kind of put stuff on. The larger kind of role of social media now in creating that construct of the new heroine, you know, how important is that? Because when you refer to people like Shabana Azmi, Smita Patil, Deepthi Naval, Seema Biswas, that they also came in a time when social media was not what it is right now. You are the new women who are kind of out there speaking your mind. And I must say, in this day and age when cinema is getting so insidiously co-opted into the political agenda of the day, I find you making that brilliant comment about Nawaz playing both Manto and playing, you know, Thackeray. You the other day I saw posting the poetry recitation, which was all about Desh and not Rashtra. So, I mean, I find it refreshing in a way. I mean, you may deny that the worldview comes third, fourth, fifth, sixth, wherever, but it's
no, on
refreshing.
social media, worldview is first because I control my social media.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But it won't come into play when, say, you are doing a film?
No, not necessarily with films, but people, brands often call my management and say, no, she's too vocal, she's very opinionated, she's sarcastic. And I always tell them I can be a great stand-up comic. I can use all this fodder and divert it. I'll have another vertical of earning. Forget about people who are offended. Because the thing is, it's so easy to toe the line, but I always find it easier to just live with myself at the end of the day than, you know, make whatever money and suddenly be flying in a chopper. And that's not a choice I will ever, because it's like Nuremberg. You know what I don't know. It's too much. I can't. I just feel it's wrong. There's no two ways about it. However, I do understand that there is an element of coercion. You can't always say no.
So if you're asked to take a selfie with, the powers that be, you will?
I don't think the powers that be will ask me to take a selfie with.
That's where
Yeah. I mean, powers that be will, people will say, can we have a photo? But
the group selfie won't.
I'm a grain of sand.
I think the work we've chosen, the powers that will be, may not be so
So,
interested.
what you started off with by being in the margins, I think is a great place to be in.
Yeah, it's fortuitous.
It's very safe.
It's very, very safe. And the thing is, when you are on the outside, you can look in at the circus and be like, that's
But I
great.
want to say something. Both of these women are my friends and I love them. We are all just like, I feel like a big heart when I sit on the stage with you.
But?
Both of you. But I'm saying that be very aware that it won't take much time for the audio cassette to become obsolete and for the CD to come into play. Who knows? The margins might be the new mainstream. That's how things start, The oddity becomes the flavor. So one must never feel like we are on the margins or the peripheries because it's a slight shift in perspective. I can think she's incredible. Her film is now running in France. She went to Cannes on her own merit for cinema. So I've been there. I feel really like gladdened by that.
That's a really wonderful note to end this conversation on and open it to the house for asking questions.
You have 6 minutes. Mike?
Hi Richa, I must tell you that while I loved Masan, I loved Bholi Punjab and Fukre much better.
I think it's great because there was no reference point for a character like Bholi Punjaban. There was no female Dawn who was making, 4 guys dance to her tunes.
And you set the standards.
Thank you.
So the question that I'm
Oh.
asking is that, of course, Kangana Ranaut has been very vocal about, nepotism in Bollywood. Do you feel that is genuine, and do you feel that you felt slighted for the role because you were not in that coterie of with the big producers?
No, slighted, or there are several outsiders who've made it. And I've actually spoken about nepotism before it was in vogue, like in 2013 or 14, because I was discussing it in the context of classical musicians. When Ustad Allah Rakha Khan teaches Zakir Hussain, that's legacy. The distinction, when we learn to make a distinction between nepotism and legacy, we'll truly make progress. At the end of the day, it's not a level playing field. And when we enter the industry, we know that. Having said that, I can't really grudge anybody for supporting their kids' dreams. Tomorrow, if I have a kid, not in this ecosystem or political or climate change situation, but I'm saying, tomorrow if your offspring tells you, I want to be in the movies, you're not going to say, no, we can't help you. So I get that, but an acknowledgement of privilege doesn't hurt. We all acknowledge the privilege that we have. Today we are able to stand in front of you and come to this beautiful panel because we are well spoken, we are well traveled, we can speak in English. I don't know if that would have been the case if, Nawazuddin is not the norm, he's an anomaly. So an acknowledgement of privilege doesn't hurt, really. That's all.
Thank you.
Well, cheers to you and to the power of your cinema. My question pertains to your relationship with your directors. Any special relationship with your directors, and has there been a case in this changing time for you all to influence the screenplay or the script? And lastly, the segment of the question, any gender biases? Is it comfortable to work with women directors? Are they more sensitive, or there is no gender bias working with any director? The question is addressed to all three of you.
अच्छा कोई नहीं बोल नहीं रहा I like most of the directors I've worked with, I'm friends with. I'm very friendly with the director of Masan and Fukre, both completely opposite these things, but they're very feminist in their own ways, and I love that about them. I learn a lot from them, and I thought that what I learned from working with female directors like, Meera Nair or I'm working with Ashwini Iyer Tiwari is that there is an absence of male gaze. That's quite fun. That is really fun because you can go, you'll be like, acha, makeup mat lagao, theek hai. So, I get to sleep for 1 more hour. It's lovely. There are small, small things which make it a joy also. I've yet to work on a film which is entirely a female set, but I'm sure that would be an experience. And about other directors, like, you can suggest some things to them and they will take it into consideration sometimes because they welcome a point of view. Karan Anshuman, who directed Inside Edge, the web show that I was also a part of for Amazon Prime, there was some objectionable promotional material. I said, this is offensive. He said, okay, change it. And I said, if we add this word tried to instead of did, the meaning of the sentence will change and the female will have more dignity. They said, yeah, got your point. So sometimes you just have to point stuff out. No one is born woke, like I said at the beginning.
I worked with many male directors and female directors, and honestly, I never felt a difference. They can, when it comes to being bigoted, it's not a matter of just mere gender. And some of the male directors I worked with, I'll give you an example of, for instance, Anup Singh, with whom Rasika and I worked in a film called Kissa, was one of the gentlest directors I've worked with. In that film, there was a scene which required me to take off my kurta, and there was frontal nudity. And even the way the crew had been prepped for that shot was that even when they came to take the focus mark to my chest, he didn't even look at my eye. It was done with utter thorough professionalism. So you can, and there was Rasika with me, there was another female AD, there were 2 male technicians from Germany. And they were absolutely, not for a second did I feel, it would have been really nice if it was a room full of women. Because there were men who were just doing their job and one didn't experience. There can be, there are women directors who are capable of being insensitive to a moment that requires a certain fragility in that transaction. So I don't think it's a matter of, matter of gender. Meera, whether Konkona, they've been incredible to work with, and all the male directors I've worked with as well. So it's just nice to see women direct films because it's still a lopsided ratio.
And I think even as a film, as the theme that it explores, I haven't come across a film on gender of the order of Kissa because it kind of looks at it in such a complex way.
In fact, for those who haven't seen the film, I play a girl child who's raised as a man, so I play a Sardar. And I was really, I kept asking the director, Anup, so how should I play a man? How does the man walk? How does a man sit on a chair? And so which man do you think I should copy? And he said, all men sit differently. Look around in this room. If I had to find one way of how a man walks, all the men in this room walk so differently, and I can see us sitting so differently. So the notion of masculinity, he really broke it for me. He said, how will this man, as in you, sit? Period. And you figure that out. You don't have to copy any man. Amazing. So there is this notion of what a man is like and what a woman is like is something we've constructed. Whether it's because of our upbringing and we've gone with it. And it's up to us whether we want to get rid of it. And we are all right now sitting with our legs crossed, and it is conditioning. It may be also it gives you sense of poise, maybe. But there will be a time and a mood when I don't want to sit like this. And I will sit that way then. I will sit with my legs apart. But it is something that I need to be aware of. That there is no one way. Even though we've all...
The time is up. Can we take one more question?
This gentleman's been...
Harvey Weinstein and Morgan Friedman admitted much earlier than the law actually caught up with them, to their guilt, which is very different from what happened here. And what is very strange here is that while Bollywood continues to endorse and really be perhaps one of the pillars of politicians in this country, none of them actually come to your rescue or your aid when you people are actually in trouble. Even if Kangana Ranaut is constantly talking about Modi, I don't think he has bothered one bit about any problem that she might have faced with Hrithik Roshan. So don't you think that maybe you should stop or rethink from where you're asking for help in in one
I
sense?
really wish we could answer that for you, but Bollywood is not a monolith. It's not one building. Like we just discussed, we are very different. Maybe the people you're mentioning we may disagree with. We've already made it clear. Sometimes we take a film irrespective of political affiliation. Sometimes we do a film for very different motivations.
But aren't you there fighting alone, despite the fact that you are one of the pillars of the greatest, poster people for the politicians? I mean, Bollywood and cricket is what politics is running on today.
Sadly, but that's because people are treating politics like showbiz, you know. And
Yes.
we have reality TV stars who are, we
Thank
have
you.
people who should act, who are actually closet actors, who are news anchors.
None of
So-
your Bollywood biggies either are coming to your support.
Sorry?
None of the Bollywood
We
biggies
don't
are-
need their support, yaar.
Good.
We are all doing fine.
But shouldn't they? Shouldn't they?
No one owes you anything. Everybody acts out of their obligations and their own motivations. No one owes you anything. The minute one understands that, you can live very peacefully with the world.
Good.
Okay, I have one last question. One last one, yeah.
Okay, last but not the least, your advice for the younger generation who treat the actors and actors like you as their heroes and role models.
No, sir, I think we need better role models than actors and cricketers.
Good. That will change everything. Thank you.
Thanks so much for making it so exciting and enlightening and fun. And I think time's up.
Time is up.
Yeah. So on that note, I think we'll take.
Thank you
bring
very
it to
much.
closure.
Namrata, may I request you to please present mementos to
Sure, sure.
the three actors on stage?